So here we are at the platform waiting for the guard signal to go. The fireman responds to the guard with a toot on the locomotive's whistle, and the driver eases open the regulator to get us underway. The journey to Keighley will take us 4.5 miles down the valley, and the River Worth will be a constant companion from Oakworth. Over that distance we'll be descending a little over 300 feet, and we'll arrive back in Oxenhope in 53 minutes. As we make our way out of the station, Bridge House Beck is on the right-hand side, just out of sight in the dip. But we'll get a view of it later. We'll arrive at our first station, Haworth, in 3.5 minutes. So let's take a little of that time to begin to explore the history of this railway. Like so many railways, the Worth Valley line was born out of an urgent need to serve the industrial heartlands with a reliable and efficient transport system which would bring raw materials to the factories and take away their output. In the 19th century, this valley was a highly industrialized area. There were 15 mills around Oxenhope and countless others along the line to Keighley. But there was one other ingredient which had a direct bearing on the decision to build. Our first stop, Haworth, is at the very heart of Bronte country. The Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily and Anne, are renowned for their poetry and literature, with Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre amongst their best-known works. In 1861, not long after the last of the family had died, John McLansborough made a pilgrimage to the village and was astonished to find that the railways hadn't yet arrived in the valley. He was a civil engineer, and although much of his work centered on improving water and sewerage systems, he had also been employed in the building of the Otley and Ilkley Railway. He understood the challenges and the benefits of such an undertaking. We'll return to the story of the building of the railway shortly. But first we need to prepare for our arrival at the first station on our journey. The village of Haworth is around the next bend, and as we approach we can see some track work on the right-hand side. Seeing the sleepers and rail like this reinforces an understanding of the amount of effort that goes into building and maintaining heritage railways like this. Largely staffed by volunteers, it's tough work and calls for a great deal of dedication. We've just passed the 4-mile marker and we'll see the station building soon. But before that, on the right, is the first of the remaining mills visible from the train. The railway's workshops are past the bridge on the right, the scene of some heroic restorations. And just beyond is a pair of 2-car diesel multiple units. The first, SC51803 from Leith and M51189 from Walsall, are Class 101s, while the second pair, M51565 and M50928, are Class 108s, originally partnered in Leeds. The whistle announces our approach to the platform and the train begins to slow. Haworth Station, like all on this line, is beautifully restored and maintained in the colours of the Midland Railway. You could easily be forgiven for imagining you'd stepped back into the 1950s, and it has an enormously popular appeal for visitors. Haworth is the headquarters of the Worth Valley line, and the size of the station and its building is suitably grand. Further down the line we'll come across some charming country halts which evoke childhood memories from films such as The Railway Children, and not without reason, but we'll come to that later. As we sit at the platform, let's remind ourselves that we're travelling tender first towards Keighley on a Midland Class 4F locomotive, so that on our return journey back to Oxenhope we can enjoy the splendid sight of the engine working hard, puffing up the 1 in 50 gradient. 43924 was one of 197 4Fs built for the Midland Railway. A further 575 were operated by LMS. This one entered service in 1920 and is amongst just 4 which have been preserved. She had a long working life, finally being withdrawn from British Railways operation in June 1965. She became the first of 200 locomotives to be rescued from Woodham scrapyard in South Wales, and arrived at Howth in 1970. 4 years later, she began a 13-year-long second career, and was acquired by the Keighley and Worth Valley line to re-enter service after a major overhaul in 2011. We're underway again from Howth Station, and our next stop will be at Oakworth. We'll be on the platform there in just 3 minutes. Disappearing behind the trees ahead is the chimney of Ebor Mill. It marks the beginning of an important section of this railway for film buffs, because it was here that scenes from The Railway Children were shot. Written and directed by Lionel Jeffries, it's an enduring tale starring Jenny Agutter and Sally Tomsett, though rather bizarrely 20-year-old Sally Tomsett played the 11-year-old younger sister of the 17-year-old Jenny Agutter. In one of the most memorable scenes from the film, the girls waved their petticoats to warn an engine driver of a landslip in the cutting ahead. In a nice touch, local MP Bob Cryer was given a small part as a train guard. Bob was one of the driving forces behind saving this railway. Ahead of us now is Untitled Tunnel. It's one of 2 on the line, the other is ahead at Ingrow. No sooner are we through the portal than the light at the far end appears. This tunnel wasn't a part of the original railway. It was opened in 1892 as part of a deviation to avoid a rather rickety wooden viaduct over a mill pond. The structure had been in use for 25 years, but there was a speed restriction on it and many passengers were afraid to cross it on the train. On the 6th of November 1892, the 725 to Oxenhope passed over the viaduct for the last time. The tracks were quickly realigned, and the 1050 was the first passenger service to use the new tunnel, to the delight of those who had booked especially for the journey. We're now approaching Oakworth, and we'll pass over a level crossing immediately before we reach the platform. The station featured prominently in The Railway Children, and on the right-hand side, next to the crossing gates, is the house of Station Master Perks, played by Bernard Cribbins. Waiting on the platform is today's station master, who also has the responsibility of opening and closing the crossing gates. Although Oakworth looks like a sleepy country halt, the size of the goods yard at the far end of the platform is a reminder of the amount of goods traffic which was carried to and from the local mills. We'll see more of them as we depart. It's also worth noting that this wasn't the only railway to have been built here. Unseen across to the right lies the disused track of the Queensbury line, which ran from Bradford and Halifax to Keighley. It passed through the nearly mile-long Lees Moor Tunnel on the other side of the valley, nicknamed the Hellhole by drivers. Travelling from Keighley, they would enter it heading south and exit it heading east, having turned through more than 90 degrees. Behind us, final preparations are being made for departure. The station master walks towards the rear of the train to open the level crossing gates once we've left, and the train guard makes his way towards the front to get back on board. As we depart Oakworth, the extent of the goods sidings becomes apparent. Today, a track team is discussing the work to be done, and a former LNER mobile crane is at work at the far end. Its operator gives us a friendly wave as we pass by. The next station on the line is at Damon's in 3 minutes, but it's a request halt and we won't be stopping there today. So our next stop is 2 minutes beyond that at Ingrow West, and we'll be there in 5 minutes' time. Let's return to the history of this line. We've already heard how John McLansborough put forward the idea of a railway to serve the mills in the valley in 1861. It was received enthusiastically, and after a meeting with the Midland Railway in October of that year, 3,134 shares were subscribed to the new company at a further meeting in Haworth. The prospectus was confident that the line couldn't fail. It would cost £30,000 to build, and the Midland Railway would operate it for a 50% share of the receipts. This arrangement would allow for a healthy 6% dividend to be paid to shareholders. The Keighley Worth Valley Railway Act was passed by Parliament in 1862, giving the powers to acquire land and start building the line. On the left now is the Damon's Junction signal box. It controls the loop constructed by the railway's volunteers, which enables 2 trains to operate on the line at weekends. Throughout 1863, the Keighley Worth Valley Railway Company served notices on those whose land and buildings would be acquired for the line. And at the directors' meeting in the grammar school in Oxenhope on the 28th of December, it was agreed that sufficient progress had been made to begin the process of inviting tenders for the construction. In January 1864, the tender from John Metcalfe of Bradford was accepted, and within 3 weeks work had begun. We've slowed because Damon's station is just ahead. And with it being a request stop, the driver needs to be able to bring the train to a halt if there's anyone waiting to board. You have to feel a bit sorry for the station master here. He's on the platform ready to assist with the loading and unloading of passengers, but today we'll be doing no more than giving him a cheery wave as we continue on through. When the ceremony of cutting the first sod was held on the 9th of February 1864, it was a grand affair. The plan was to build the railway in a year, but as with most plans, there were troubles along the way. There were some delays in getting possession of the necessary land, and there was a major problem with the construction of the tunnel ahead at Ingrow. The workmen discovered a layer of wet, sandy soil, and as soon as they removed it, more flooded in to fill the void. The engineer decided that piles would have to be driven down to the bedrock below. Unfortunately, this combination of soil movement and vibration from pile driving caused major damage to the Wesley Place Methodist Church, which stood above. Sadly, it had only just been built, and an architect's inspection declared that it couldn't be made safe. So it was torn down and rebuilt some distance away, and the ensuing legal wrangle took 4 years to be resolved. The tunnel is coming into sight now, and we'll be at the station platform immediately after we exit. Ingrow Tunnel is 150 yards long, exactly double the length of the one behind us at Mightholmes. It's worth remembering that the station we're approaching is Ingrow West. Ingrow East was served by the Great Northern Railway, and their tracks ran a little to the right. Ingrow East was their terminus for a few months after opening in June 1884, but services were extended to Keighley in November, running on the Worth Valley Line's tracks which were expanded to dual track for the purpose. We will see the spot where the two companies met a couple of minutes after departure. Ingrow West is another beautifully maintained station, again with a sizable goods yard. It's home to the Vintage Carriages Trust's Museum of Rail Travel, and there's a fine collection to be seen, many of which have played a starring role in films or on television.